You're listening to the Mind Over Finger podcast, episode number 40, the fifth and last episode of the series covering the Fischoff experience.
Welcome to the Mind Over Finger podcast, discussions on mindful music making, efficient practice, and building a purposeful career. And now, your host, Dr. Renee Paul Gauthier.
Hi everyone, welcome to this last episode about the Fischoff Chamber Music Competition. Over the last few weeks, I had the chance to talk to so many incredible people before, during, and after the Fischoff competition, and I hope you enjoyed our conversations and found value and inspiration in these 9 episodes that have been released already. The Fischoff competition, in the words of the organization, was originally intended to encourage emerging instrumental chamber musicians and provide a national forum for their talents. And as you saw, it does this very thing in such a masterful way. The event is prestigious, yes, and it's also very special. It's not only a chamber music competition, it positively influences the lives of everyone involved. The participants, the organizations that provide education for those participants, their families, the Fischoff staff, and it also impacts thousands of local school children who get to experience these dynamic chamber music presentations that are given by ensembles from current or past competitions. Playing chamber music really develops so many important aspects of being a well-rounded musician. It sharpens how we listen and how we respond, and therefore it refines our playing. Also, working with each other, negotiating personal conflicts and professional differences can profoundly shape us as human beings. In these 9 episodes about Fischoff, you got a lot of wonderful tips and really wise advice on practicing, rehearsing, and on competition preparation and performance from my many guests. And there's one mindset that I hope we can all walk away with from all of this information and insight. We're never just practicing or rehearsing one thing. Everything that we practice or rehearse or work on builds our skills. Therefore, everything we participate in, every passage we work on for our youth orchestra concert or our next gig, every shift we improve or every breathing exercise we do, all of those things help strengthen us. It elevates us and enhances our playing. So, for example, the knowledge and experience you get from that quartet that you rehearse one day will stay with you when you step in the rehearsal room to practice with your pianist the next day and influence how you play in your next orchestra concert. It all comes together. On a personal level, I was really excited when I was approached to cover the event, and that's for many reasons. First of all, Fischoff is such a widely recognized event. It was a great honor, and I was very excited to have this opportunity to observe everything that's happening there and to listen to all the amazing performers. Also, as someone who was on the competition circuit, I know what entering them brought to me as a young musician, and that made being there so much more meaningful. For me, in my development, competitions brought, yes, let's face it, stress, and they required a lot of difficult sacrifices, but they also gave me something precious that in French we call dépassement de soi, going beyond your own limits, pushing past your current state. For me, preparing for solo competitions required a lot of dedication, serious work, consistency, and a lot of support and help from my family and my teachers. It taught me to set goals and figure out ways to get there. I learned how to work efficiently and with focus, how to face my fears, and it helped me develop grit. My playing improved through preparing for competitions. I made lifelong friends at competitions, and I got to experience so many exhilarating moments and was exposed to so much artistic beauty. Fischoff also brought back a lot of vivid memories of my own chamber music experience with the various groups that I had in schools and summer camps, and also with a much more serious ensemble that ended up participating in the 2000 Banff International String Quartet Competition. We were called the Dior Quartet, and the other members were Annie Trépanier on the violin, Steve Larson on the viola, and cellist Brian Snow. And at Fischoff, all the memories of working really hard playing awesome repertoire came back rushing. The long hours of rehearsing, discussing interpretation, studying scores, traveling all over the place, going on rehearsal retreats to Quaker farms, going to summer festivals to get coachings, and studying with the members of the Emerson Quartet as part of the residency we were in at the time. This was a huge time of growth for me, both musically and humanly. And I think that this is the recurring theme that we've heard from everyone here at Fischoff. Fischoff is not just a musical event. It's a rich human experience in which the music itself becomes the instrument that brings people together. It's all about the people. Also, I think it's important to realize and remember that everyone leaves as a winner. Everyone is going home richer and wiser and more experienced and hopefully completely inspired. And speaking of going home, before we left, my fellow podcaster friend Nathan Cole and I treated ourselves to our own musings on our experience at Fischoff. Nathan covered the event with his podcast, Stand Partners for Life, and I hope you listen to those episodes as well. Here's our conversation. How's the experience for you?
Oh, this has been great. I was just saying it brings back a lot of memories, even though I didn't do this competition. Chamber music and specifically quartets were such a big part of my experience in school and just beyond. There was a time that I sort of teased the idea of doing this for a living, really. And eventually I just didn't really have the courage to follow through with it and move to a strange city and just kind of see what happened. I wanted that job. I wanted to, punch in and out of work every day and kind of know where I was going to be. So, being around these guys from age 10, I guess, in this competition, all the way up to 30, those were, well, not 10, but starting maybe at 16, those were the years that I really thought of myself as a quartet player, chamber musician. And I just love seeing the energy, the enthusiasm, and the maturity.
I'm really impressed with the level here. I think that what you just said, the level of maturity I hear in the playing is really, I would say, almost breathtaking. Yeah.
And I started out thinking that I would know how the young groups would play and how the older groups would play, and it hasn't quite worked out like that. I mean, in general, sure, I think when you're older and you've just done this a lot longer, there's a patience, maybe a repose that comes with it, in general. But so many of the younger groups I find have that too. I think that's partly they get a lot more experience performing than I did at that age, and partly great coaching too. People just letting them know, here's what you think is coming out, but here's what's really coming out.
Right. And as we speak now, what's in the background, I'm sure the microphones are picking it up, is the junior division. And someone would walk by and think maybe it's a senior division.
Oh, absolutely. And I know, talking to the director, Tom Rosenberg, he was saying that, in the old days, the the junior division clearly sounded like the junior division, but that's been a big change up to today.
I've never been at Fischoff. Of course, I'm Canadian, as you know, and so I've never attended and didn't know much about the competition other than the fact that it was very recognized.
Sorry, I'm just waving at the group I'm rooting for only because there's someone from my hometown there.
But, I have to say, I really love, speaking from all the parents and the coaches and the students, this atmosphere that I see here where everybody is so supportive of each other and parents become friends and, coaches so supportive of their groups,
Yeah, really. And it's a reminder how much parental involvement these groups need to really succeed. I mean, not only getting here, which means driving or paying for a plane ticket or something, but I mean, the parents come with them too. Mm-hmm. And they're so invested.
They are. And then hearing stories of parents driving from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Chicago, actually the north of the city, weekly, or kids flying from one city to another every weekend for coachings and lessons. I've said it before, but it takes a village.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you've noticed, right? I had no idea before that there were these sort of super centers of junior chamber music, these schools or institutes that consistently coach great groups. And it seems like it has to be a combination of judging personalities to put the kids together in the right groups. And then just sort of seeing which ones catch fire, which combinations really work and which kids have a blast doing it. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the great coaching, week in, week out.
And one of my other favorite thing about being here is we get to hang out a little bit in person.
I know, because I always listen to your show and hear your voice, over the waves.
Yeah, and same
but
here.
I haven't seen you in so long in person, so yeah, this has been fun. Mm-hmm. Although for a lot of this, these 3 days we've been sitting across from each other like those.
Waving across the table.
I know. The one time that I visited Bordeaux, there were these two famous Bordeaux chateaux that sit right across this very narrow lane from each other. And yeah, the guidebook I read said that they were, making these great wines, but the chateau were just staring at each other across this narrow lane. So I feel friendlier than that, but it's true. We've been putting out these shows with just these little 20 feet separating us.
Mm-hmm. I think for me it's so inspiring listening to all this really awesome music and watching these young musicians with their enthusiasm and dedication is so refreshing. And I feel like I go back home after this weekend completely inspired and rejuvenated and ready to practice some scales.
I know, yeah. Definitely me. I have actually a bunch of videos to make on scales and etudes. So, yeah, we've been talking about this group and that group and some criticisms here and there, along with the compliments. And then, yeah, every criticism I make, I'm like, I gotta go back and practice.
That's for sure.
I finally got to go in the hall this morning. I'm embarrassed to say, in all the excitement of interviewing and trying to capture all the action. I'm not really in there recording performances or anything. And finally, this morning, I got to go in and listen to the senior strings and piano division. And really, what a level.
Yeah. I mean, and even yesterday, I was talking to a wind group, the Catharsis, and they were talking about how they rehearsed every day.
Oh, wow. Is that a senior?
Yes.
Okay.
And
so I imagine they're obviously all in school together.
Mm-hmm. And it's just tremendously inspiring and very impressive.
I mean, what was your quartet experience like in school or chamber music?
Well, as all young musicians, I wanted to play the Schubert Quintet at the age of 14.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't even know that piece existed until I got to school. I was so sheltered.
I went to conservatory, which is a very wonderful school system in Canada. And so we started chamber music kind of young. And so I had some experience with actually the first quartet I played. We didn't play the whole thing, but it was part of the 7 Last Words of Christ. And I think we were 12 years old and just fell in love with this piece. And it was such a fun experience. And of course we thought we were terrific. Truth is we probably were terrible, but had such a great time. So we had this chance to play chamber music and some piano trios here and there. And then, you enter college and then the chamber music experience becomes more part of the requirements. And I remember my freshman year being thrown in the Bartok contrasts, and that was kind of an awakening.
Yeah, I've got one note in that piece that I whistle. I don't know if you remember, there's a double stop with like a solid note and a harmonic, and someone gave me the tip once, and ever since they told me I can't not do it now.
No? Okay, so we're going to need to talk because I need that tip. Because I love playing this piece, but I know exactly what you're talking about, and I would very much appreciate a tip.
Well, some people can whistle and some can't, but I can at least find that one note, and then I don't have to play the harmonic, and it sounds much better than actually trying to play those two notes at the same time.
Well, depending on how high it is, I can whistle something, but we'll see. It's such a great piece. I love this combination of the clarinet and the piano, but yeah. And then, of course, chamber summer festivals is always a fun place to do chamber music.
That's where I played my first string quartet. I remember clearly it was the Mendelssohn D major, Opus 44 number 1, and so that was the summer I was 14, and it was a dedicated chamber music camp actually, and it was a nice gentle introduction, even though back then I didn't know how great the coaches were that we had. I mean, names that I still know and people that I see, and I'm like, oh, they were my coach when I was 14. I kind of looked at them like, oh, it's this old guy coming in to, bother us for 2 hours.
Right.
And yeah, it was like some major concertmaster and somebody in a major quartet. And, but yeah, though for me, I would play a little bit of quartet in the summer or something. And so it wasn't until I got to Curtis when I was 18 that I got to do any more than that. And then I just fell in love with it.
I just feel like for me, it brought so much. And everything that I hear from the participants here is also part of what I think, and probably what you think too, in terms of learning to work together as a team and listening and matching colors, matching vibrato. I think that if you've never done chamber music, these are not things you think about.
I know. I mean, that drives us crazy in the orchestra a lot of the time, me and Kiko. And, we'll find ourselves guilty of it from time to time too. But when sometimes there will be questions that could be from a newer member, for example, like, well, what's the stroke here? Or, what part of the bow is it? And it's like, didn't you ever play chamber music? Just look up and see what the concertmaster is doing, or your principal, and you know how to match if you have eyes and ears. But if you really didn't play chamber music, then that might not be your instinct. Or it takes an effort rather than being something that just happens naturally.
You really develop that sensitivity that you're talking about. It's almost as if it's a sixth sense.
Yeah, and you get yelled at a lot too if you're like me. I mean, so that fear or not wanting to disappoint people, it's a powerful motivator. But first time sitting down in a quartet to play, I mean, just the balance was killer. I was always mostly too quiet playing second violin. And then the times that I thought, oh, well, let me assert myself here, was like, what are you doing? You're in octaves with the cello. You got to be under the cello. And intonation, suddenly what I thought was in tune, that wasn't the last word anymore.
Yep, those things happen.
Well, the coachings were the same too. I mean, then I always had the feeling like, oh, well, okay, these slightly older kids are beating up on me in rehearsal, but when the coach comes, he's going to save me, because he's going to say, oh, this is sounding great, you're doing a great job. And no, then it would be even worse. Like, yes. Didn't these guys tell you how to, that they're more experienced? Didn't they tell you not to do that? Didn't they tell you to play louder here? And then I'd never hear the end of it. And, after a year of playing with more experienced people at school, then finally some things started to become more automatic. Like if you're second violin, you're all the time playing the third of a chord or the fifth or something, and so you're not relying on muscle memory or something anymore. You're automatically listening for the note that you have to be locked in with.
One of my greatest lessons, I think, was shortly after I graduated and entered the world as a professional musician. I was playing in the summer festival and was matched with a very, very prominent musician, someone that, when I got my assignment, I was, kind of had to catch my breath for a little bit. And someone older, very well established, and throughout the entire rehearsal process where we played, I think the entire Brahms piano quartet, the third one, and with only 2 rehearsals before the concert. And he was so gracious and so supportive, and with this very limited time, there's only so much you can fix and only so much that you can change, and you have to, feel and read each other very quickly. But throughout the entire process, he was so, as I said, gracious, patient, supportive, and at all times I felt as if he was regarding me as a colleague.
That's great.
And it really allowed me to play at my best, and it taught me that how you treat your colleagues is very important, and it really affects how they play, because I think we've all had experiences where maybe a colleague is not supportive or you feel judgment from them, and then that really is not helping the overall product.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everybody plays better when they feel like the rest of the group's on their side and they think you're doing well, that kind of thing. I mean, criticism is great as far as long-term building, but especially when you're talking about being put into a group where you have to play in just a few rehearsals, there's not really time to change someone's playing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got to work with what you have, and for the more experienced person to really take that attitude and bring the best out of you. I mean, not to assume that they were actually a better player than you just because they were older. Yeah, I really try to remember those positive experiences anytime that I'm working with younger musicians. Mm-hmm. Because I never want, because I've had the opposite experience too, as I'm sure you have, with older, more established players that treat you like the kid you are.
Right. Yes.
And I was actually one of the jurors here. Danny Phillips is someone that I distinctly remember being the first kind, the good kind that you're talking about, but that kind of situation where I expected, because of his reputation and his gorgeous playing, I expected that, he'd make me feel like a kid even without trying to. And I always remember him as someone who, like you said, treated me like a colleague. It's like, hey, we're playing together, you're my colleague. And that meant so much to me at age 20, 21, same age as these guys competing here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been such a fun experience being here. And as I said, I'm so glad we had this chance to catch up a little bit.
I know, yeah. Thanks for coming across the room occasionally. No, it's been great. Thank you so much.
And there you have it. Of course, I can't leave you before giving you the names of the 2019 recipients of the Fischoff Competition. So here they are. As you know, the grand prize went to the Aruna Quartet of Texas Tech University. For the senior division strings and piano, the gold medal went to the Merz Trio from New York City. Silver medal winners were the Abeo Quartet from the Juilliard School. And the bronze medal winners were the Dior Quartet from Indiana University's Jacobs School. The senior division winds and brass saw the Aruna Quartet as gold medal winners, as we know. The silver medal went to the Khroma Quartet from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and our friends from Catharsis Winds of the Cleveland Institute took home the bronze medal. For the junior division of strings and piano, gold medal winners were the Fervita Trio from the Young Chamber Musicians from Burlingame, California. Silver medal winners, the Eclatant String Quartet, that you will remember from the Starling Preparatory String Project in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the bronze medal winners were the Meraki Quartet from Croton Music Center in Berkeley, California. Junior division winds and brass, gold medal winners were the Golden Melody Saxophone Quartet from the Middle School of the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing, China. Silver medal winners were the Quantum Quartet from the Hebron High School in Carrollton, Texas. And finally, the bronze medal winners for the junior division winds and brass were the Bone Rangers from the Merz School of Music in Chicago. Congratulations to all of you. A huge thank you to Carmen Creel and everyone at Fischoff for inviting me to be part of this wonderful adventure. That's it for today, and actually also for this season of the Mind Over Finger podcast. I truly hope you enjoyed the episodes, and I will be back with more incredible guests in the fall, talking about mindful and efficient practice and building meaningful musical careers. In the meantime, make sure to subscribe to automatically get the first episode of Season 2 when it lands on Friday, September 6th. You can listen to episode 30 for some information on the guests you can expect to hear from in Season 2. Thank you so much for being an awesome audience. Stay in touch on Facebook, Instagram, or at mindoverfinger.com. And join me in the tribe for more content about mindful practice over the summer. And that's at facebook.com/groups/mindoverfingertribe. Thanks again, and à bientôt.